click on Join, and you can sign up via their Join program. And then when you've done that, you can come back here and you can sign in. So it might take a day or two to create your account. So make sure you kind of request one sooner rather than later if you intend to use it. When they've created your account, you can sign in. This will take you to a login page. You log in with the details you've created. So note that it'll have to be a .ox.ac.uk email address. You sign in here, and this takes you. So the thing to note is there's kind of two separate accounts that will work here. There's an AWS Educate account, which works on this site and the things we've just seen. And then there's your AWS account that you actually use on Amazon Web Services. So when you log in, when you sign into AWS Educate, you'll get here. You can then click on AWS account, which will give you some information about the account you've got. So it tells you what the account is, it tells you how many credits you've got and when your access runs to. If you click this button, it should take you to actually logging into the AWS infrastructure. So once we're on this page, we see a bit more about AWS. It tells us again our credits and how much time we've spent on here. And then the key thing to do here is go to AWS Console. So AWS Console is the actual AWS infrastructure itself. Everything we've seen so far is kind of external to the cloud services. So you click on AWS Console, and it's going to take you to a view like this. So this is the standard way in. The first time you see this, have a browse through, see different things. It's all pretty confusing, I have to say, the first couple of times you look at it. And there's lots of stuff, there's lots of complexity to AWS. That means it's very powerful. But in general, we want to get through that complexity as quickly as possible, at least for this example. So in Find Services, we are going to type SageMaker. And SageMaker is the Amazon kind of branded version of Jupyter. So when you see SageMaker, just do a kind of replace in your head with Jupyter. And there are kind of two parts to this. You can create individual notebooks, which would be the same as just running Jupyter on its own under Anaconda. And you can create that via the notebook interface down here, so you can create instances. But it's a bit easier to use their equivalent of Jupyter Lab, which is called SageMaker Studio. This gives you a whole kind of Jupyter IDE that you can work in, open and load files and things like that. So we're going to click on that. And the easiest thing to do here is, you can read the documentation, you can do whatever you want to make sure you understand the process. But in general, we're going to use Quick Start because that's going to do most of the things for us. You can ignore all these default usernames. You can set them if you want. And we need to set ourselves an IAM role. So IAM is their internal authentication process. And you might have I have an existing role because I've used this before, but you can just create a new role and set this all to pretty much the default values. So that seems to be allowing me, I've got green ticks, any S3 bucket, so S3 is storage, and then we hit create role, and that's going to populate everything for us. So again, there's lots of letters and numbers and things that look a bit complicated, but we don't need to worry about that. If we hit submit, I haven't selected the role. So this was the role it just created. So it told me it created the role, 2020, but I didn't select it. If I hit submit, now things should work. I thought it was going to automatically select it for me. And now what we're going to go over is this is going to take kind of a one-time configuration cost that sets up all the AWS infrastructure behind the scenes. So the accounts, the computers, the networking that we need to use. And this is going to take a few minutes, so we're just going to sit here and wait for it to happen. Okay, once that loads, we'll get a username down here, kind of random jumble of letters and numbers. We see a ready sign here, and that means we're able to go over here and hit Open Studio. That's going to jump us to another window, and that window will show us the kind of loading page of the SageMaker Studio, which is the Jupyter server kind of clone here. This is going to take a little while, so you just sit and wait until we get to the launch page. Okay, when that page finishes loading, which will take a little while, you'll get dropped into the launcher window like this. We have a file browser on the left, which we can toggle with this button, and we can create some new notebooks and different things from this menu. The notebooks are always associated with a particular kernel, which is a particular underlying Python configuration provided by Anaconda typically. We're going to work with data science. Data science, I mean, it's specialized machine learning, but it has NumPy and it has Matplotlib, which is the key tools that we're going to use. So if we click down here, we can create a new notebook, which will open up in a new window. And the first time you do this, what you'll see is that the kernel is starting. Down here, you've got this green light that says kernel is starting. The very first time you do this, it's going to take a really long time for that kernel to start, because it's booting up some other machines in the background. This time, it doesn't take very long, but if this is the very first time you do it, expect that that'll take a long time. And when you run this, your first Python, it might tell you that the kernel's still starting up. You can actually pop down here and click on this button, and you can see what's running in the background. You can see that you've got this data science app that's running on a particular virtual machine, the size of the virtual machine, and things like that. So that's interesting for those of you that are curious about it. The other thing we need to do then is start getting the files up here that we're going to work with. So I can click upload, and I can find and navigate the files that I want to upload. So here we've got the tutorial sheet, and we've got the lecture notes. If I upload these, then they're going to be uploaded onto the Amazon servers, where we can just use them as if they're on our local machine. So we can see a little uploading progress bar down there. And in a minute, those should pop up here for us to see and work with. So we can open the lecture notes, for example, and the kernel will start up, and then we can access them. So it might ask us to choose a kernel again. So the kernel is the thing that's running in the background supporting the Python work. This one's taking a bit of a long time. The lecture notes are pretty big, so that kind of makes sense. Just give it a few more seconds. No, it's clearly taking its time to think about that. We might come back. In the meantime, what we need to do, well, let's see if we can open another one. I think maybe the kernel is just, oh, this one opens a bit quicker. So that's the tutorial sheet. There we go, this one's loaded as well. And this one is going to ask us to select a kernel. So again, we go for data science. That has all the tools we need. And then it's giving the one for the lecture notes. So then it's going to connect down here to the kernel, and off we go. We also want to get the self-study exercises, so we can click on one of the links from the notes, and that will take us to a Git repository. In the other video, I showed you that we could just download the zip file and use that locally on the machine. What we're going to do here is we're going to clone the repository by getting the Git URL, and that's going to give us access to the full kind of history of this repository if we want. We can go back over here, go to the Git menu, clone a repository, paste the link in, and off we go. Then that's going to appear on the left. It's actually going to clone it, which is involving getting both the files and the history. But it'll be as equivalent as if you'd kind of unzipped it locally. So we can double click up here and open the first file and get to work. So that shows you how you can get all the files you need up here to work with. You can also download them so you can get them locally back to your machine if you want. And that gives you it should give you enough information to get started running Jupyter Notebooks in AWS. All right, good luck with it.